Waterloo, gateway to the southwestern commuter belt, the New Forest, the West Country, and the Isle of Wight. By the mid-60s, Waterloo is the last major bastion of steam in the capital, and enthusiasts flock to see BR Standards and bullied Pacifics. The four-core electric sets have not yet developed the cult following which they will later achieve, and Jeff Todd's film record is appropriate. Generations of holidaymakers and enthusiasts have passed through Waterloo en route to the Isle of Wight, and we will make the same journey. But first, a bit about the island. It is diamond-shaped, some 20 miles wide by 13 deep. The three principal ports are Cowes at the apex of the island, Reach from Southampton, Yarmouth in West Wight, Reach from Lymington, and Ryde, a few miles to the east of Cowes, and served by Portsmouth. We shall travel on the Portsmouth route. As we head for Portsmouth, we discover that we are in the strong country. At Portsmouth Harbour Station, it is just a few yards to the steamers which will take us to the Isle of Wight. The paddle steamer Sandown joined the Southern Fleet in 1934, coming from the celebrated Denny Yard on the Clyde. Her maiden voyage was appropriately from Portsmouth to her named town of Sandown, but she was ordinarily employed on the Ryde services. She could accommodate 900 passengers and was capable of 14.5 knots. When Jeff Todd filmed her in 1965, she was nearing the end of her life and was to be withdrawn the following year. During the war, the Sandown and her sister ship, the Ryde, were taken over by the Admiralty for service as minesweepers. We also see one of the post-war Denny trio of motor ships, the South Sea, Brading and Shanklin. Until the 1960s, the combination of the Adams O2 tanks, such as 33 Bembridge and the graceful paddle steamers, made Ryde Pier Head a magnet for steam lovers. There was a sense of anticipation as the steamer approached Pier Head with its Southern Region green signs. Crowds would disembark and scurry along the platform. Soon there would be a train on its way. But there would be another train before long. 30, Shorewell, pushes the stock down the platform prior to running round at Pier Head. 23 of the Adams O2 tanks were transferred to the island between 1923 and 1949. To suit them for their duties on the Isle of Wight, they received Westinghouse air brakes and in due course extended bunkers. There was plenty of activity at Pier Head, with stock backed out, locos running round, then backing the stock partway into the platform to water, and finally propelling it in. Well into the 1960s, the engines were kept in lovely condition. We will join the train for the run to Ryde St John's Road Station. 18 Ningwood makes a spirited departure from St John's Road in 1964. With the demise of Newport Shed, St John's Road looked after the loco fleet. The works were on the opposite side of the line. A well-filled Ventnor train approaches St John's Road in 1964. "35 Freshwater, one of two 044 tanks to carry motor fittings, departs for Pier Head." St John's Road Bridge provides a convenient vantage point for filming. "26 Whitwell comes off shed at St John's Road. The locomotives carried names belonging to towns and villages in the Isle of Wight. 26 will run light to Pier Head. She was the first O2 tank to receive an extended bunker back in 1932. Number 32 Bonchurch is in her last season as she enters St John's Road en route to Pier Head in 1964. This film record is from John Laird. Number 20 Shanklin, one of the first pair of O2s to come to the island in 1923, arrives with a Ventnor train. At the other end of the station, another service leaves for Pier Head. We pull out on the double-track section towards Smallbrook Junction, where we will turn west towards Cowes. "26 Whitwell loose shunts her coaches down the platform prior to running round. Shunting at all three termini to survive into the 1960s was complex and added to the fun for enthusiasts. Stock was gravity shunted back into the platform, and the locomotive would follow in to couple up. Cowes and Newport Line trains carried white route discs above the left and right-hand buffers. Ventnor trains carried a route disc below the chimney. Roster discs, which gave the engine duty number, were also carried and added to the diversity. Eventually, 26 is ready to depart. Number 22, Brading, arrives with another service. Braiding performs the usual shunting moves, propelling the stock backwards, and will then of course run round. With years of use, many of the root discs had become rather grimy and weathered. "22 braiding pulls away from Newport and onto the impressive curved viaduct across the River Medina. Major roadworks have obliterated every trace of the railway in this area. The Sandown route diverged to the right at the far end of the viaduct. Number 29, Alverstone, enters Newport with a coal train from Medina Wharf, for coal continued to be moved by rail well into the 1960s. '29 has a good deal of shunting to do. As no new wagons had been delivered to the Isle of Wight for many years, traffic continued to be handled in old wooden-bodied wagons. It was one of the last places on British railways where such vintage stock was to be seen. We returned to Ryde Esplanade in time to see a train departing for Pier Head. '26 Whitwell comes in from Pier Head en route to Cowes. As 22 Braiding enters Esplanade, another journey is almost over. It is time for another trip with a quick look at Ryde St John's Shed. This time we will travel south to Wroxall on the Ventnor line. The Ventnor line was the busiest of the routes on the island. With the intensive services, trains frequently crossed at Wroxall. Isle of Wight engine men needed the skills of county cricketers, as we discover. Journey's end is Ventnor, where number 21, Sandown, will water before running round. One platform had normal access, but a second island platform had neither a footbridge nor a subway. Passenger access is via a ship's gangway, which must be removed before a train or engine can run by. It is another peculiarity of the Isle of Wight system. To Departure from Ventnor was always dramatic, with the tunnel just beyond the station throat. Number 29, Alverstone, bursts out of the single-bore tunnel through St Boniface Downs and into Ventnor Station. We will head back to Ryde, crossing another Ventnor train en route. At Ryde, we return briefly to the St John's Road overbridge. John Laird visited the double-track section from Ryde to Smallbrook Junction. 30 Shorewell heads for Ryde. In winter, Smallbrook Box was switched out and the two lines were worked as parallel single tracks from St John's, reducing line capacity but saving on manpower. 29 Alverstone heads for Ryde. Number 35, Freshwater, was one of the last pair of O2s to come to the island in 1949 and is heading for Ventnor. "32 Bonchurch calls at St John's Road before pulling away for Pier Head. After a glimpse of 17 Seaview on Shed, a coal train drifts slowly into St John's Station. We will join a train for Pier Head, calling it Esplanade. At Pier Head, number 22 Brading will propel her stock clear of the crossover before running round. The Westinghouse pumps made a characteristic panting noise, which added a great deal of charm and interest to the island's railways. We journey back to 1953, when the passenger stock was in BR Carmin, as was the Ryde Pier tram. It is not yet summer, and Smallbrook Junction is switched out, the crossover dull and the signal arms removed. At Sandown, there's plenty of stock in the sidings adjoining the Isle of Wight Central line. We cross an immaculate 24 Calbourne at Shanklin. We pause briefly at Wroxall. At Ventnor we have a real treat with some of the few known film clips of number 19, Osborne, was drawn as long ago as 1955. The Bembridge branch train arrives at Brading. We'll run round. The Bembridge branch diverges from the Ventnor line at Brading. There is one intermediate station, St Helens. We will have a trip along the Bembridge branch, which opened in May 1882 and closed in September 1953. The intermediate station, St Helens, was an impressive location. Bembridge, space was limited, and a turntable was used at the buffer stop end of the loops instead of points to save space. The line was built by an independent company, but worked from the outset by the Isle of Wight Railway and taken over by that company later on. Our footplate trip shows the ventilation holes in the cab sheet just below the roof. We will take a trip over the Isle of Wight Central line from Sandown to Murstone Junction and Newport. The first station was Alverstone. Newchurch comes next. Services ceased over this section in 1956. Horringford was another pretty little station serving a few scattered houses. At Murstone, the IWC branch from Ventnor West curved in. This had closed in 1952. Shide was the last station before Newport. The junction with the Ryde line at Newport was on the viaduct east of the station. The sheds are visible to the right. The Freshwater, Yarmouth and Newport Railway had been independent until 1923 and had an awkward junction at Newport involving trains reversing in or out of the station. The departure was on a sharp curve. Freshwater, due to close within a few months, looked dingy. After the closures of the 1950s, the Cowes Newport Ryde and Ventnor Shanklin Ryde lines survived. A growing number of enthusiasts were to visit the island, and modern forms of transport had made their appearance. The hovercraft terminal was at Esplanade Station. Esplanade provided a splendid vantage point to look out towards Pierhead Station. The pier trams were now in Southern Region green. A Ventnor train is approaching Esplanade. We'll take a brief look at St John's Road Shed. Sadly, many of the engines are now showing signs of age. A Ventnor train is climbing away from Ryde St John's, her destination clearly indicated by the route discs. We cross another Ventnor train, this time with just one route disc. Ryde St John's approach. Number 35, Freshwater, picks up the staff at speed at Smallbrook Junction. How did this fascinating system evolve? As we journey to Ventnor, let us find out. The first section to open was the Cowes and Newport in June 1862. This became part of the Isle of Wight Central Railway in 1887. The Isle of Wight Railway opened from St John's Road to Shanklin in August 1864, but due to the tunnel near Ventnor, did not reach its southern terminus until 1866. The Ryde and Newport Railway connected with the Isle of Wight Railway and Cowes Line from 1875. It became part of the Isle of Wight Central. The Bembridge Line opened in 1882 and soon fell into Isle of Wight Railway hands. The line from Sandown to Murstone and Newport took 11 years to build, from 1868 to 1879, and became a part of the Isle of Wight Central. The central branch to Ventnor opened in 1900. The remaining line, the Freshwater, Yarmouth and Newport, had opened in 1889, but had a tempestuous relationship with the Isle of Wight Central. To add a final eccentricity, the section from Ryde St John's to Pier Head was built by the London and South Western and London, Brighton and South Coast Railways jointly, as the local companies seemed unable to find the funds. It was worked by the local companies, however. Jeff Todd has captured the activity at Ventnor in a series of scenes which recall the character of this unique station in its deep chalk cutting. Ventnor Tunnel, although it has not seen trains for many years, continues to serve a useful purpose for public utility services. Back at Pier Head, the tram is shuttling to and fro. By 1965, the railway is showing signs of weariness, but engines still have a hard task and will continue to work until electrification of the Ventnor route as far as Shanklin is completed. The rest of the system is doomed to abandonment. That the railways could continue for so many years with such vintage stock is a tribute to the railwaymen who worked the island's lines, and who, as well as being highly professional, were extremely friendly and considerate to visiting enthusiasts. "26 Whitwell heads south with another ventnor working, her smoke box badly rusted. The double-track section as far as Smallbrook Junction is still well worth a visit. The passenger stock was in Southern Region green and was all maintained at Ryde Works. To see the carpenters maintaining vintage stock of this age was a fascinating experience. Whitwell approaches Smallbrook with a Ryde train. The signalman takes the staff as 28 Ashy passes by. 21 Sandown leaves Smallbrook en route to Ryde as a southbound train waits in the distance. Cowes train, with number 30, Shorewell, diverges onto the Newport line at Smallbrook Junction. The Cowes route provided attractive views of the River Medina. The footbridge at Cowes, which spanned the platforms, was not for passengers at all, but was to maintain a public right-of-way which crossed the station site. It also provided a convenient location for photographers. Cowes station was on a sharply curved site. Once more, coaches are propelled out, but it will not be for much longer that we can witness these scenes. The station has not seen a visit from the weed-killing train for a long time. The station is approached by narrow streets, typical of Cowes, a quaint but delightful town. Holiday makers board the train for the journey back to Ryde. Soon it is departure time. A 100 years of history on the Cowes line will soon be drawing to a close. Although the system was run down, it still offered plentiful opportunities for the photographer, as at Sandown, where the line ran beside a park near the cliffs. Pier Head was as fascinating as ever. The low evening sun makes an evocative scene. Once again we dive into the tunnel just beyond Esplanade Station. St John's Road Bridge provides a vantage point again. Turning the other way, we look to St John's Box and the bracket signal which controlled movement at the south end of the station. In summer, this had two main arms, in winter, four arms, when Smallbrook Junction was closed. We see it in its winter configuration. The signalman comes forward to pick up the single line token of an inbound train. Double track was installed by the Southern Railway between Brading and Sandown to facilitate handling the heavy services on what was otherwise mostly a single track system. Until the 1960s, the Ventnor line carried a quarter-hourly service with an hourly service to Newport and Cowes. On summer Saturdays, additional trains terminated at Shanklin. Because of loading gauge restrictions, modern BR stock could not operate on the island, and until the end of steam, almost 70 LBSC or South Eastern and Chatham bogie coaches were in regular use. In this programme, you may have seen the large coach set numbers. There were 4 Newport sets in the 60s, 485 to 488. The 7 Ryde sets ran from 490 to 500. In winter, they were all 3-coach formations, but in summer, the Ventnor sets were increased to 6 vehicles. Extra coaches might be added as required. The existence of this large fleet of pre-group Brighton and South Eastern passenger stock, together with former LSWR tank engines, gave a unique character to the island lines. The road bridge at Wroxall provided an attractive vantage point as a train heads towards Ryde. Today, Ventnor Station is an industrial estate, and trees have grown up above the tunnel mouth, so these views cannot be repeated. Until the 1960s, it was a busy, if quaint station, which we explore from a variety of vantage points. One oddity was that many of the coal merchants had their offices in caves in the cliff face. Some of the caves remain in use today. If you knew the Ireland lines in steam days, you will relive your own memories, as well as enjoying the scenes you are watching. If your acquaintance with the Wight lines is more recent, this is what it was like. And it is thanks to the filmmakers, such as John Laird, Jeff Todd and Derek Norman, that we can travel back in time as we have. Quite a lot of climbing work was involved in getting these scenes. As a Ventnor train approaches Smallbrook Junction, we discover that a sleeper has been clamped across the rails of the now abandoned Cowes line. BR had proposed closure of the entire system, but this was wisely turned down due to the intolerable road congestion which would ensue. The Ryde-Shanklin section was to remain, but the Cowes line closed in February 1966, and the Shanklin-Ventnor section that April. The Adams O2 tanks were very elderly, and BR decided to replace them with 1923 London Underground stock, which was surplus due to LT modernisation plans. Electrification work commenced in the last months of steam operation. We will visit the Clapham area to see the new stock during trials prior to transfer to the Ireland. The 1923 LT stock was marshalled into 4 or 3 coach sets, amusingly classified as 4 Vec or 3 Tis, recalling the Latin name for the Isle of Wight, Vectis. The stock originally appeared in BR Rail Blue, later in two-tone blue and grey, and finally in Network Southeast colours. Derek Norman filmed one of the dwindling band of O2s just north of Smallbrook in 1966. Paintwork was now shabby, and nameplates had mostly gone. However, a lingering pride in their steeds had led to homemade replacement plates on many engines, so the delightful Ireland names, implemented at the behest of A.B. MacLeod during the 1920s, were to survive. Enthusiasts were now plentiful, as were special trips, but as the weeks rolled by, the system became ever more tired. To those who knew the Ireland just a few years earlier, the decline was tragic. Steam services ended on the 31st of December 1966. To facilitate electrification work, no trains ran until March 1967. The new era dawns. Briefly, the paddle steamer Ride could still be seen. The signal box survived at Ryde Pier Head for a while, and the station was still a hive of activity. The Ryde Pier tramway also survived for a time, and although the steam trains had gone, there was still plenty to look at. Semaphore signalling was still in use at Pier Head. Both platforms were still in use at Esplanade, for many passengers took the train from Pier Head and transferred to Road at the adjacent bus station. Beyond Esplanade, the underground sets became underground once more, as they dived under Ryde through the tunnel. This has always been a restricting feature of the stock which could work on the island. A 7-car formation approaches Sandown, which retained its signal box and the double-track section from Brading for a while. A red disc was used in place of a tail lamp. Southern influence remained strong. Steam had gone, but the railway had gained a new lease of life, and with 1923 underground stock, became a mecca for electric traction enthusiasts. At Esplanade, another set starts away towards Pier Head. In the distance, the paddle steamer Ryde is awaiting her passengers. Much has changed, but Ryde was to delight enthusiasts for a little while to come. By the late 1980s, the 1923 underground stock was nearing the end of its life, and thoughts turned to new stock. In Ireland terms, this meant newer second-hand stock, and the choice fell upon 1938 underground stock, which was rapidly being replaced by LT. An impressive inauguration ceremony was arranged at Ryde Pier Head to welcome the new stock, which was resplendent in full Network Southeast colours. Needless to say, this included breaking of the ceremonial banner. The media were well represented. A special press trip on the 51-year-old new stock had been arranged. After steam services ended in the 1960s, preservationists had rebuilt and reopened the section between Wootton and Haven Street. With friendly relations between Network South East and the steam railway, the preserved line was to extend to Smallbrook Junction, where a new station was to be built. An unveiling ceremony took place. Today, Island Line trains call at the new platform at Smallbrook. Passengers can make a convenient connection with the Isle of Wight steam railway services. These reached Smallbrook in 1991. As well as number 24 Calbourne, the last surviving Adams O2 tank, the steam railway acquired two former Brighton Terriers, both of which had seen service on the island. Number 8 Freshwater had been sold by the Brighton to the LSWR, leased to the Freshwater Yarmouth and Newport, then sold to the FYN. It came into southern ownership, returned to the mainland in 1949, and after service at Hayling Island, became a static attraction at a pub. She was finally restored as number 8 Freshwater, a truly remarkable career for a fascinating locomotive. As number 8 leaves Smallbrook, let us pay tribute to the amazing efforts of the preservationists who have made this all possible. Ashley Station owes its present form to a BR rebuilding due to subsidence of the old platform. The original Ryde and Newport Railway Station buildings still survive as a private residence. Haven Street, headquarters of the preserved line, in 1994. Number 8 enters the station from Wootton, as she has done for many years in the past and will for many years to come. As a companion volume to this programme, we have recently published Waterloo Sunset, Colour Films 1958 to 1967, a marvellous evocation of Britain's last intensively steam-worked main lines, from Waterloo to Salisbury and Weymouth. Nearly an hour of archive film featuring Bullied Pacifics and other southern classes, BR standards, and even a few Swindon-built interlopers. It will make Waterloo Sunset an absolute delight for all enthusiasts of Southern Region steam power. Some of our other titles may also be of interest to you. Have you caught up yet with Thomas the Privatised Tank Engine? These hilarious satires on rail privatisation, first published in the magazine Private Eye, are now available in this £4.99 paperback from Midland Publishing. The book features such characters as Gordon the Virgin Engine, Jacko the Juggernaut, and not forgetting Britain's hottest diesel, Selina the Sprinter Unit, whilst never very far away is the evil genius of the railways, the Grey Controller, oh yes. If you're interested in the Southern Railway and its successor, the Southern Region, you will enjoy George Behrend's book, Don't Knock the Southern, his belated sequel to his classic on the Great Western, Gone with Regret. Don't Knock the Southern is a Midland Publishing hardback costing £14.99. The story of one of the bullied Pacific which escaped from the clutches of the Scrapman is told in Tor Valley, From Dream to Steam, a highly illustrated Midland Publishing paperback costing £9.99. Written by Ian MacDonald, a member of the Loco's support crew, on its mainline runs, the book first deals with Tor Valley's career on the Southern Railway and latterly British Railways, and then covers the heartening tale of how it was transformed from a rusting hulk in a scrapyard to a fully restored star of mainline steam runs all over Britain. For the complete range of programmes produced by online video and books and tapes produced by Midland Publishing, and indeed for all your railway book and video requirements, contact Britain's biggest mail-order specialist, offering the greatest range of titles and packing and service which is second to none. Midland Counties Publications, Unit 3, Maysfield, Hinckley, Leicestershire.